Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Virtual Training Institute and our third session of the day, Measures of Central Tendency with Vidya. So I'm going to take a quick poll. The poll is going to ask, what is your role in your program? So go ahead and select one of the following. All right, excellent. It looks like we have 29% of you are instructional specialists. And then we are fairly evenly split between program administrators and ABE instructors. All right, so welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Vidya to get started on measures of central tendency.
Good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure for me to be here today, and thank you so much to all of you for participating in this presentation. First of all, I wanted to thank Gina Davis for encouraging me to take part in this presentation, for being such a support, and for patiently answering all of my quirky technology questions. I also wanted to especially mention my instructional specialist at Harford Community College, Jessie Thompson. She's always been a constant support. She's been my cheerleader, and she's always been available with a multitude of resources whenever I needed them. I also wanted to thank Rhonda Davis, who provided her feedback and her critique on my PowerPoint presentation. So thank you to Rhonda as well. And again, I'm very, very happy and grateful to be here today and very honored to share some of my experiences from the classroom, specifically in teaching this math lesson, the measures of central tendency. So to get started, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself and my background. I am originally from Toronto, Canada, born and brought up there. I lived there for 18 years, and when I was 18 years old, my family and I made the drastic decision to move back to India, where my parents had grown up, primarily in order to be with my grandparents, because there was nobody to take care of them, but also because I was an advanced student of Indian classical vocal music. So that was a huge part of my life, and I had the opportunity to learn from one of the masters in the field, and so I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity. So education is a part of my life, not just in the ABE GED classroom, but outside as well, and I have a private music studio. So education is a huge part of my life. While I was in India, I completed my bachelor's degree in English literature, and then I moved to Minnesota after that to do my master's degree in adult education. Once that was completed, my husband and I moved to Maryland, primarily for his job. And so I started working as an ABE, GED, ESOL instructor at Cecil College, and then moved on to an agency called First Step in Cockeysville, and then took a nice long break of 10 years to stay at home and raise my 3 daughters. And now they're all grown up and drive me crazy at times, but I'm fortunate to have been able to spend that time with them. And in 2018, I really missed teaching and wanted to get back into it. And so I applied for the position at Harford Community College, and I'm very fortunate to have been hired and to have been a GED instructor since January of 2018. So I primarily have been teaching pre-GED reading, writing, and math classes, and I have taught an ABE class as well. And I'm so grateful to be part of the fantastic team at HCC. And I really, really enjoy working in adult ed because I love that every student brings a unique perspective to class. And, you know, no matter what stage of life they're in, they've already amassed a wealth of experience, which is so vital and can be so beneficial in the learning process. And I'm grateful to be able to play a small role in the next positive chapter in someone's life. All right, so moving on with the presentation. So I wanted to start with the objectives of this presentation. So first and foremost, as math teachers, the first objective is for us to be able to teach the academic skills necessary, math skills necessary for students to be able to succeed and to move forward. And in this particular case, it's to be able to calculate the measures of central tendency. The next objective is to recognize the real-life applications of these values. I'm sure we've all heard these questions as math instructors, as adult educators, is why do we have to learn these skills, or why are these skills necessary, or when are we ever going to use these skills in our real lives? And that is such a valid question. And so wherever and whenever possible, I try to provide real life applications, especially in math, to the things that I teach. Sometimes it's not always possible, but wherever I can, I try to do that, because I feel that if students can identify with something from their daily lives that they've already understood and they've already mastered, they can apply that knowledge to their math skills as well, and it will help them gain a better comprehension of what they're about to learn. All right, so the next objective is to gain digital literacy skills. So provided, if you're an instructor, provided you have access to a computer lab or to a laptop, I think it is so complementary, especially in this day and age where most things are done digitally. It's so great to be able to provide that element of digital literacy in your lesson. So as you'll see, as we move on further in this presentation, one of the websites that I use allows students to participate in the digital literacy and to practice those skills as well. In my class, we also use Aztec, which is a software specifically geared towards GED training. And that has a great lesson on the measures of central tendency. So if you have access to that software, it's a great way for students to not only hone in on the academic skills, but also to practice with the digital literacy as well. Number 4, so through this lesson, students will gain practice in reading graphs and charts. So the webpage, the complimentary webpage that I use called Layered Statistics, the author explains the measures of central tendency very tersely, very concisely, and very precisely. And so that is why I chose that lesson. But he also gives visual representations of the measures of central tendency. And he does so primarily through the use of graphs and charts. And this is, as you all know, this is such a vital skill in math, but also can be transferred to science, social studies, and even reading comprehension. So this is a great cross-curriculum objective that students will have, and they'll gain practice for all their subjects. And then finally, through to encourage interaction among students, one of the activities that I like to do at the end of the session is a card game activity. So it's a flexible and fun activity that students can play, and that can be adapted in a variety of ways depending on the needs of your class. And I'll elaborate on that as we move forward. So firstly, what are the measures of central tendency? So it's a very fancy name, but all it means is mean, median, mode, and range. In this presentation, I'm going to focus primarily on the 3 M's, the mean, median, and the mode. The range, I don't focus on as much, primarily because it's not a measurement that's used very often, because it doesn't provide an accurate depiction of how the data is represented, but it does give you boundaries, so you have a minimum and maximum value. And on another note, that range can also be useful in recognizing errors if you're entering data. So for example, if you are conducting a study amongst teenagers and you want to enter your age range as 13 to 19, but you incorrectly enter it as 13 to 91, when you calculate the range, which you can do by subtracting the minimum from the maximum value, you'll know that you have made a gross error. So the range can be helpful when it comes to entering data. So why are they called the measures of central tendency? They're called the measures of central tendency because they tell us what is happening in the middle of a data set, or in other words, they provide a typical value. So the key word here is central. Okay, so making the measures of central tendency relatable. This is really the crux of my presentation, and this is what I want to focus on the most, is how can we make these mathematical measurements relatable to students so that they're just not abstract measurements. They can relate them to something concrete in their lives. And I've given here just 4 examples of how you can make them relatable in your classroom, but there are literally millions of other possibilities. So you can adapt this to suit the needs of your class and depending on what you think your class would relate to. So you can use the mean to check the temperature of your vacation destination. So knowing the average temperature over a certain period of time in a certain place will be useful if you're trying to plan a vacation, for example, and you want to know how to pack and how to plan. So one of the things that you can do with your students is have them go online and look up the temperature, look up daily temperatures over the span of a week or the span of 2 weeks, and have them calculate the mean temperature so that they can practice the mean, but that then they can also relate it to their daily lives. Next, using the median home price to decide on your next move. So if you're looking to buy a home perhaps, or maybe even rent a home because of a job relocation, the median home price will be a good indication of what neighborhoods may be in your price range. Next, using the mode to take a poll to decide on the theme for your company's holiday party. So you can have a little more fun with this one. So if you're taking a poll on if you should have, whether you should plan a retro theme or a tropical theme for your company's next holiday party, you would be taking a poll, and the answer to the poll would give you the mode. So this is a way that you can change it up any number of ways, but this is a way for students to understand how the mode works. So it's essentially the most popular option. And then finally, you can use the range to get an idea of a minimum price and a maximum price when shopping for a new computer. So again, the range is not necessarily the most accurate measurement, but it gives you boundaries. It gives you a minimum price and a maximum price so you know your limits. All right, so moving on to look at each measurement in a little more detail. So the mean is commonly referred to as the average. It can be defined as the overall performance of many items, but represented by a single number. So one of the advantages of the mean is that it includes every value in a data set as part of the calculation. But on the other hand, this can be a disadvantage because it includes every value in a data set. So the mean can be greatly influenced by outlier or skewed values. And then I've given below the formula on how to calculate the mean. I'm not going to go over that. So the application for the mean. So especially when you have a younger population and students these days are into cool apps and getting new things on their gadgets or tools on their phones. When you try to search for a new game or the next cool app in the App Store, what is the first thing you look at? It's probably the rating. Or if you're looking for something to buy on Amazon, you're looking for a specific product, and when you type in the search, you get 10 varieties of the same thing. How do you know which one you want to buy and which would be the best quality? You're probably going to look at the Amazon rating. It gives you the number of stars. So in effect, what you've just done is you've taken into account the mean of all the reviews. So this can be a way that you can incorporate the mean measurement and make it more relatable to students. The mean is also used to calculate a player's batting average in baseball, or it can be used to look at a final grade on a report card. So One of the websites that I like to use, and I primarily focus on this website when I'm teaching this lesson, is the Laird Statistics webpage. And all students need to do, if they have access to a computer, or if you can project it, all you need to type in is Laird Statistics, Measures of Central Tendency into your browser, and it pulls up the exact page that you need to convey what you want to convey about the measures of central tendency. And one of the tools that he uses is to provide a staff salary table. So he lists individual staff salaries, staff member salaries, and he shows just how outlier values can affect the mean. So that's a great way that students can be introduced to that. Next, moving on to the median. So the median can be defined as the middle value in a data set. The median value can be a more accurate representation when there are skewed or outlier data values. So it can be a more reliable representation of a typical value. And then I've given the method. So one of the visual images that I encourage students to try and remember if they're having difficulties remembering the definition of a median is to think of a road median. So if you can picture it on a road, the median is in the center of the road and it divides the left side of the traffic from the right side of the traffic. So that can be a good way for students to remember what the median is defined as. And like I had mentioned before, I give them the example of moving to a new city and looking for a home to buy or a home to rent, as the median shows the middle value. And then again, Laird Statistics provides the staff salary table where they show the median home value, and they show that how it's a more accurate representation of a data set, of the median of a data set. Then we move on to the mode. So the mode is the most frequent value that occurs in a data set, or in other words, simply the most popular option. So although the mode is the popular option, the most popular option, a disadvantage of the mode is that it is not very useful with continuous data or data with an infinite set of values, because it is unlikely to have values that are identical. So for example, if you're trying to measure people's weights and you're trying to find the mode amongst a group of individuals, it's almost impossible that two weights will be the same. So you're not going to be able to find the mode. Also, the mode is not beneficial when the most common value is isolated from the rest of the data. So for example, if you have a mode of a value of 2, but there are more readings, more data shows values in the 20 to 30 range, the mode would not be an accurate representation. So those are some of the drawbacks of taking the mode, using the mode as a measure. So the application of the mode, the real life application, the mode is beneficial when the most common item, characteristic, or value of a data set is needed. So one of the scenarios that I like to give is the scenario of a small town in which there's a large factory that employs most people who earn minimum wage. The owner also lives in town and makes considerably more than the rest of the workers. Taking the mode would give you a more accurate depiction or description of how most people are doing. Another more relatable, perhaps, example would be if you are trying to do a DIY project. A lot of us are trying to save money and we want to do or learn more, and we want to do a DIY project of installing a new countertop in our bathroom, and you're not sure how to do it. A lot of us would probably look up a YouTube video, and of course, when we do, we'll probably find 100 videos to choose from. So how would you know which one to choose? You would probably look at the one with the most views. So in effect, what you've done is you've referred to the mode, because it tells you which is the most popular video. All right, so next, moving on to our card game activity. It's very simple, not complicated. All you need is pencils, paper, playing cards, and optionally a calculator. I try to encourage students not to use a calculator so that they can practice their basic arithmetic skills. But if they need to use a calculator, that's totally fine. So you can review the key terms with them just to go over with them again. And once the students grasp the differences between these words, and like I said before, this is very flexible, but I've just given a general outline of how I like to play in my classroom. You can gather 4 players to a team and practice each of these math concepts. So you would use the ace through 10 cards and deal out 7 cards to each player. And then from then on, they would have to calculate the mean, median, mode, and range. And you know, you can play with points, you can play without points. So it's really adaptable, and there's a great instructional webpage on education.com. So again, you can encourage students to pull up the instructions for themselves. There's also a great educational video on Mashup Math that explains how to play this game. So optionally, you can have students watch the video and have them pull up the video on YouTube. But it's just really a great way to encourage interaction between students, and it can be played in smaller groups. It can even be played individually if need be. So you can make it suit the needs of your class. And then finally, I wanted to provide the cassis and GED correlations. So you can see that there are a lot of correlations that are being met in this lesson. You know, going over some of them, they deal with solving arithmetic expressions, recognizing the best technique, building steps to a solution. So these are just some of the ways, and these are some of the factors, the criteria that are met through this lesson. And I just wanted to end off, this quote is particularly significant to me. It's by the Irish poet W.B. Yeats, or William Butler Yeats. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. And this quote particularly resonates with me because, particularly for adult students, education is so much about not just accumulating data or facts or you know, math skills, but it's about lighting the spark of learning, and learning to love, you know, love education, because for whatever reason that spark couldn't be ignited, you know, before, and now students are making that effort to light that fire and to have their desire for learning burst into a flame. So I really, in my class, I really hope to kindle that fire amongst students and to hopefully ignite the spark that they can take with them moving forward. So thank you very much. That's my email. Thank you again for allowing me to be a presenter, and I really enjoyed sharing my experiences with all of you.
Thank you so much, Vidya. That is fantastic information. So everyone, I'm sharing a feedback survey link in the chat box. We appreciate your feedback. This is our second virtual training institute. We're always looking to improve. And then I'm going to give it just a couple more minutes. If anyone has any questions for Vidya, you can ask them in the questions box. All right, it looks like we have a question from Jeannie. What programs or software do you use to generate graphs?
That's a good question. I haven't used a specific software as such. Like I said, we do a lot of practice with Aztec. So that's primarily what I use.
Quite a few thank yous. All right, so everyone, if you'll take a few minutes to fill out our feedback survey, we would appreciate that. All of the resources will be available on our website following the Institute. So thank you so much for your time today, Vidya. What wonderful information you were able to share. Anytime we can create excitement around mathematics, it's a win-win for us and for our students. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you at the next session at noon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.